9 people entered these mountains. Not one of them came back alive. In February 1959, a group of experienced hikers set out on an expedition through Russia's remote Ural Mountains. They were young, skilled, and fully prepared for the brutal winter. But something happened during one freezing night, something so terrifying that they cut their tent open from the inside and ran into the darkness with almost no clothing. Weeks later, rescue teams discovered their bodies scattered across the snow. Some had suffered horrific injuries. Others showed almost no signs of trauma at all. For more than 60 years, investigators, scientists, and conspiracy theorists have searched for the truth. Was it an avalanche, a secret military experiment, or something far more mysterious? This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. In late January 1959, 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on what was supposed to be another challenging winter expedition. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with years of mountaineering experience. Every member of the group was highly trained. They knew how to survive freezing temperatures, navigate through snowstorms, and travel across some of the harshest terrain in the Soviet Union. Their goal was to reach Mount Otterton, a remote peak deep inside the northern Ural Mountains. The journey was classified as Category 3, the highest difficulty level for winter expeditions at that time. Before leaving, the group laughed, took photographs, and wrote in their journals. Nothing seemed unusual. No one could have imagined that these would become the last photographs ever taken of them alive. As they disappeared deeper into the endless white wilderness, nobody knew they were walking toward one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The group continued deeper into the frozen wilderness. On February 1st, 1959, they reached the eastern slope of a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl. Its name, given by the local Mansi people, is often translated as Dead Mountain. As daylight faded, powerful winds swept across the open slope. Temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Instead of descending into the shelter of the forest, the hikers decided to pitch their tent on the exposed mountainside. It was a decision that would change everything. Inside the tent, they cooked dinner, wrote in their journals, and prepared to sleep. Nothing in their final photographs suggested fear. Everything appeared calm. But sometime during that freezing night, something happened. Something so terrifying that all 9 hikers cut their tent open from the inside and ran into the darkness, leaving behind their boots, their heavy winter clothing, and almost all of their supplies. No one knows exactly what forced them to flee, and whatever happened that night remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Days passed, but the hikers never returned. At first, no one was alarmed. Experienced mountaineers often returned later than expected. But as more time passed, families grew worried. On February 20th, 1959, rescue teams were finally sent into the Ural Mountains. The search was slow. Deep snow, freezing winds, and endless forests made every step difficult. After several days, the rescuers spotted something on the white mountainside. It was the group's tent. But something was terribly wrong. The tent was still standing, yet it had been ripped open from the inside. Inside, they found sleeping bags, food, warm clothing, cameras, and almost all of the hikers' belongings. It looked as if everyone had left in a desperate hurry. But where had they gone? And more importantly, what could possibly make 9 experienced hikers abandon everything? and run into a freezing night with almost no protection? The answer would only become more disturbing. Following the footprints, the rescuers entered the forest. About 1.5 kilometers from the tent, they found the first two bodies. The hikers were lying beneath a large cedar tree. Both were barefoot. Both wore only light clothing, completely unprepared for the freezing temperatures. Nearby, the remains of a small campfire were still visible beneath the snow. It looked as though they had desperately tried to stay alive, but the mystery only grew deeper. Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, 3 more bodies were discovered, including the expedition leader, Igor Dyatlov. They were found facing the tent, almost as if they had been trying to make their way back. No signs of a struggle, no clear explanation, only silence and the freezing wilderness. The remaining 4 hikers were still missing, and what investigators would discover weeks later would make this mystery even more disturbing. The investigation continued. Weeks turned into months. The snow grew deeper, hiding whatever secrets the mountain still held. Then, on May 4th, 1959, search teams made another discovery. Hidden beneath nearly 4 meters of snow, they found the remaining 4 hikers. But this time, something was different. Their injuries were unlike anything investigators had seen before. Several had massive chest fractures. Others had severe skull injuries. Yet strangely, there were almost no external wounds. It was as if an incredible force had crushed them, without leaving obvious marks on the outside. One victim, Lyudmila Dubinina, was found missing her tongue. To this day, no one knows exactly how it happened. The official investigation could not fully explain these injuries, and the mystery only became deeper. For decades, the most widely accepted explanation was simple: an avalanche. According to this theory, a mass of snow suddenly slid down the mountain during the night. Fearing that their tent would be buried, the hikers cut their way out and escaped into the freezing darkness. But there was one problem. Investigators found almost no evidence of a massive avalanche. The tent was still standing. The footprints leading away from the campsite remained surprisingly clear, and the slope itself was not considered steep enough for a large avalanche. Years later, scientists proposed a different possibility: a rare type of slab avalanche, one capable of striking with enormous force, yet leaving behind surprisingly little visible evidence. Could that explain the mysterious injuries? Maybe, but even this theory fails to answer every question. Why did the hikers never return to their tent? Why were some injuries so unusual? And what truly terrified them that night? The avalanche theory explains part of the mystery, but not all of it. Not everyone believed the avalanche theory. Another explanation soon began to spread. What if the hikers had accidentally entered a secret military testing zone? Some witnesses later reported seeing mysterious orange lights floating across the night sky. Others claimed the Soviet military had been testing experimental weapons in the remote Ural mountains. Supporters of this theory point to another strange detail. Some of the hikers' clothing was found to contain small traces of radioactive material. Coincidence? Or evidence of something far more secret? The Soviet Union kept many military projects hidden from the public. If an experiment had gone terribly wrong, would the government ever admit it? Despite decades of speculation, no official document has ever confirmed that military testing caused the tragedy. The evidence remains uncertain, but the questions refuse to disappear. What if there was no avalanche? No military experiment? No unknown creature? Some scientists believe the answer may have been the wind itself. As powerful winds rushed over the mountain, they may have created an invisible phenomenon called infrasound. These are sound waves so low that humans cannot hear them, but they may still affect the human body. Some researchers suggest prolonged exposure can trigger extreme anxiety, disorientation, panic, and an overwhelming urge to escape. Imagine waking in the middle of a freezing night, feeling terrified, without knowing why. Could invisible sound alone have driven the hikers out of their tent? It's a fascinating theory, but like every other explanation, it still leaves important questions unanswered. The strange injuries, the missing tongue, the traces of radiation, none of them are fully explained. Perhaps some mysteries were never meant to be solved. More than 60 years have passed, yet no single explanation has solved every piece of the puzzle. Was it an avalanche, a secret military experiment, invisible infrasound, or something we still don't understand? Perhaps the truth disappeared with those 9 hikers on that frozen mountain. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. And maybe some secrets are meant to stay buried beneath the snow. If you enjoy exploring the world's greatest mysteries, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Mystery Atlas and join us on the next journey into the unknown.